Today, I just want to speak to you about what is sin. Whenever people think about sin, they think of the Bible and the law, morals and immorality and all that. But, sometimes when you want to create understanding, you just want people to understand what this thing is so that they could also come to understand why that which is required of them is good for them. In that, I mean that when God says do not sin, for the opposite of sin will be to do good. So that people could understand that, sinning is bad without really being religious or reading the Bible. But when you give them like understanding by explaining to them and say, this is why this is sin, and then this is why you're not supposed to sin. Because if you sin, these are the results. So what I am going to do is that I'm going to use the manufacturing process to explain what sin is so that people could take it in ways that they can understand without being religious or without being legalistic about it. If you understand the manufacturing process. In fact, the manufacturing process is very easy without a person having ever worked in a production company or whatever. You can just understand if somebody explained to you this is what happens in a manufacturing process. So in a manufacturing process, you have like products which are being produced, which are being made. And before a product is made, what happens is that you're gonna have a sample. A sample means that something that is made is usually called a golden sample. And this golden sample goes through various tests to make sure that this product does exactly what it was designed to do. And when the manufacturer is happy that the design is good and the function of the product itself performs what is expected of it, then they could make it like a mass production. So in the beginning, what you have is a prototype, and it is through the prototype that they create in the manufacturing process, they create a sample. And this sample, of course, the prototype is like, it's just a rough, let's say if we're talking about cell phones, a prototype of an iPhone will be a rough sort of iPhone. It'll probably not necessarily look good to be sold on the market, but it will be able to perform all the functions that the iPhone will be required to perform. And then from the prototype, they make a sample, which is called a golden sample. And the golden sample will also go through various tests and various quality checks to make sure that it is exactly as the designer wanted it to be. So you have someone who designs a product and tells you what the product is supposed to do, and then you're gonna have a prototype from the design, and after the prototype you have the golden sample. I'm not sure whether the golden sample and the prototype are actually the same thing, but it's a process of the prototype and the golden sample. And the golden sample gets tested, goes through various quality checks to make sure that it is according to the design and it functions according to what is the requirement. So when the people are happy, the manufacturing people are happy, then they take it through mass production. In mass production, you're gonna have either a lot of machines if the production process is automated, or you're gonna have people who are gonna make this thing, whether they're gonna make it using their own hands or they're gonna make it using machines. But what they have is that they have the golden sample or quality documentation, which shows how these things must be assembled, and all the quality checks must be observed to make sure that the product at the end of the production line, it is the way that it's supposed to be. So throughout every stage that in the production process, you're gonna have a stage in which the assembly process takes part. The next stage will be a quality control check to make sure that everything that was supposed to be put in was put in, and everything was put according to the way that it was supposed to be put in. You see that? So the quality check ensures that everything is according to a standard. That's the function of the quality check. Everything is according to standard. And at the end, you're going to have quality assurance, which check the quality of the overall thing. But because some products or some assembly stages will be enclosed, that's why you will need each and every step to have a quality check to make sure that this is done correctly. Because at the end, the whole thing might be closed. So the person at the end who's going to probably do the final inspection, who's probably the quality assurer, cannot see what went on. But the quality control person who is in the production line can see what goes in and check mark it and say that it is in accordance with the standard. So the most important thing here, which I'm starting to tell you about, is the standard. If on the production line, after a stage has passed, and the person who's doing the quality control checks finds out that something went wrong, is not according to the way the golden sample says, or according to the standard which is required for the assembly of this product, he will have two choices, and these two choices will be determined by the the severity of the non-conformance to the standard. If the severity of the standard is such that the product can be reworked, meaning that it is sent back to the previous stage to be done correctly. But if it is such that maybe because of what was done in the previous stage, it is impossible to disassemble the thing. So what remains is to scrap the thing. That is destruction. But realize that in the manufacturing process, you have tolerances. That is like, if maybe the length of an object is supposed to be, let's say, 10 inches, then they're going to have a tolerance of 0.1 inch. Meaning that if it's 9.9, let's say the tolerance will be plus minus 0.1. So if it's 9.9 inches, it's a pass. It is not according to the standard of 10 inches, but it is still acceptable. And if it's 10.1 inches, it is also passed. It is not according to the standard of 10 inches, but it is accepted. You see that? But if it's below 0.1, it's not accepted. That means a reject. And then if it's in terms of a length, and then it's a bar, it's an iron bar, it has to be scrapped because you cannot increase the bar. If it was cut, it was cut. You cannot add a piece of something onto it. So by that, you can see that even in human production, we have standards in terms of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And that which is not acceptable, if it cannot be reworked or repaired, it is destroyed. Now, let's bring it back to sin. Realize that during creation is actually a manufacturing process. It is just that in production, we use forms and create new forms. We use like old forms, which are the raw materials, and then we create products which are becoming a new form. But when God created, He created out of nothing. There was nothing to use to create. That's why no human being can be a creator. We can only be producers. You see, but in terms of the human process of manufacturing, because of the impotence, the incompetence of man in creating things perfect, there will always be errors. That's why you have tolerances. But in the creation of things of God, who's perfect, He cannot create anything which is imperfect. It is impossible for Him to do so. That's why there is no intolerances. That's why the wages of sin is death. You see, that means if a product failed, the production process of God is scrapped. There is no repair, there is no rework. You understand? So that's why God told Adam that the day that you sin, you will die. Because that's how God does things. His processes are perfect. Any malfunction, any error which may lead to a deformity or a non-conformance to the standard which He has set must be destroyed. You understand that? So that is sin. So in everything that we do, we have standards. the standard of marriage. In most civilizations, the standard of marriage was that a man must marry one woman. So it will be legalized to have two wives. So the standard is one wife. And the standard for a human being to live is to, the standard that God has given us is that you must do good to everyone. You must love your neighbor as yourself. That is the standard. Failing to uphold or conform to this standard of doing good to your neighbor and treating them the way that you want to be treated becomes sin, becomes a nonconformance, becomes a deformity, thus requires that there must be destruction of the transgressor who fell below the standard which God has set. So the same as in the manufacturing process, anything that fails, which cannot be reworked or repaired, is destroyed. But in the case of God, the reparation process which is done through Christianity, through Christ, is by the other attribute of God, which is mercy and love. Do you see that? So God at the beginning created everything perfect, in which everything which does not conform to the standard which he has set dies. That's why Lucifer died. That's why Lucifer fell from the standard which God has set, and he came down to die. Because he is without the Spirit of God, that means he is dead. Because to die is not necessarily, not be able to breathe. To die is to be without the Spirit of God, because God is life. And it is through his Spirit that he puts life in an object and animates it. And that animation is worship and submission to God. You see, so God created everything good and perfect, but these products, Adam and Eve, fell. That means they died. But God, in his power, in his mercy, is able to undo the works of sin, meaning that he's taking this product, which is a non-conformant, and put it back into the production line and redo it, rework it, recreation. In the case of Christ, rework in a manufacturing process, so that that product or this person can once again go through the quality checks and be check marked as quality or failure. And if it's failure, it must be destroyed. So to sin is to fail to conform to the standards which God has set. And God has a standard for each and everything that we do. When we speak, we're not supposed to use profanity that is below the standard which God has set. When you have sex, we have to have sex with the person of the opposite sex whom we're married to. When you do anything outside of that, that is falling below the standard of God. Thus, that is sinning. When you kill, you are not supposed to kill. The standard of God is that we must serve each other in order to animate one another for the glory of God. So killing falls under the standard that God has set in terms of life. You see? So sin should not be looked at in terms of Lord. It should be looked at in terms of life. That the only way that life will be peaceful and we will have joy is if a standard is set, and the standard is put at the gate for everyone to know and to be able to see it. And everyone must be able to conform to that standard which they can see. Failing to do so, to conform to the standard, of course, will bring about disorder, anger, pain, and bitterness. You see? So there's no longer peace, there's no longer order. So to bring back order, it may be required that which does not conform to the standard which God has set, meaning that which is sinning must be removed from the products which are conforming and are observing the standard which God has set for life. That must be thrown away. You see, so even in terms of our own civilization, in which when a criminal has committed a crime, we take him through the legal process so we can show him the standards of our civilization, that this is the standard of our civilization. And unfortunately, you have fell below the standard. Thus, you have broke the law. And because you are not conforming to the standard which we have set in this civilization, you are causing disorder. Thus, we have to remove you from those who love order and are conforming to the standard which we have set. That's why we take a person to prison. Because we don't want him to be in a society where people love order and peace and are conforming to the law and are conforming to the standard which we have set. So the laws of God are just basically the standard. Just like a quality control document in a manufacturing process, that is the law. Everything must comply and conform to this quality guidelines as the law. Failing to do so is sin. Do you understand that? So it is important that people to understand that sin is not just sin because God decided that it's sin, or God just decided, you know what, I'm going to control these people, I'm going to say this is. Sin is sin because sin itself does not only offend God in terms of Him being the creator, but sin causes pain in other people. So when you sin, you actually hurt other people. You see, when a man cheats on his wife, he hurts his wife. When a wife cheats on her husband, she hurts her husband. And because the husband is hurt and in pain, he can't have peace. And because he can't have peace, that means he can't be happy in this society. So if it was possible that adultery was legalized, that if you committed adultery, you would be arrested, that means that this woman will have to be removed from the people who love marriages and work to bring happiness to each other when they are married. She will have to be removed because she causes disorder in this society where people love order and peace. Do you see that? So when they're saying that you have sinned, it's not that you were saying is that because you are living below the standard which is good for mankind to have peace and order, you are causing chaos. And because of that, you are a bad member of society. That's why you must be taken away. But realize that the standard which is set by man is not the same as the standard which is set by God. Because in terms of man's standards, you could do what is right but still be removed from society. Like in terms of apartheid and slavery, you could be fighting oppression but be arrested because the standard which man has set is flawed. It favors other people and oppresses other people. It makes other people happy and oppresses other people. You see, so you have to have discernment in that just because something is a crime, it may not mean that it's a sin. But every sin is a crime, but not every crime is a sin. Because that which is sin is against the standard which God has set, and God does not set anything which is flawed, does not set a flawed standard. You understand? But anything which is a crime can be something which is made legal by man, but in the eyes of God, it could be something illegal. You understand that? So all I wanted to do was just to explain what sin is, and the reason why you have a rework or a repair in the manufacturing process is because there's belief that this thing is to work. And in terms of the rework through the regeneration of the Holy Spirit in the hearts of man, it is because man was already destroyed. But God, through his power, and mercy is able to recreate a man, and once again make him conform to the standard that he has set, and once again make him bear fruit, which is useful to God. In terms of the manufacturing process, it will be about selling the product and bringing fruit, which is the profits which are coming after the product is sold. So when you look at the way that God organizes things in terms of life, you can realize it, because since we are the creatures of God, it will be unlikely that we can do anything that God has not already done, although on an infinitely higher level, except for sin, of course, because sin comes only from the devil. And we are only sinning because we have accepted the devil's doctrine in terms of Adam and Eve, that they could be like God. Do you see that? So that is all that I have to say about this topic. What is sin? Thank you for listening.